In 2022, a YouTube Shorts creator known as Woke Karen uploaded a video titled Anime Has A Fascism Problem. In this video, Woke Karen, who I will be referring to as Karen for lack of a better name, makes the claim that anime, the anime industry, and the anime community has beliefs and ideals rooted in fascism. Not only is this untrue, but the further a viewer gets into Karen's video, the more apparent that it becomes that Karen is either being dishonest for the sake of viewership, or has xenophobic feelings towards Japan and the Japanese people. Karen opens his video by establishing that he is familiar with anime and manga.
I love anime. Credentials? Okay, how about this? I'm all caught up in One Piece. I've done my time. This is a subject matter that I am very familiar with. I watch the contemporary stuff. I watch some of the classics. I read the mangas like Chainsaw Man, Hell's Paradise, and Kaiju No. 8.
In an effort to show that he's well versed in this medium, Karen makes the mistake of not doing proper research. The works Karen mentions are all serialized in the Shonen Jump magazines. These magazines are targeted towards the young male demographic. Karen is missing out on a bunch of other manga aimed at different demographics and audiences because according to him, he only reads from one publisher. Also, not to nitpick, but it is manga, not mangas. Like, come on, Karen, you said you were such a big fan.
So believe me, I'm not some jackass trying to attack a form of media that I have no interest in.
Next, Karen mentions the importance of online anime discussion boards and how they are used by many anime fans, including those belonging to minority groups.
There are a lot of POC, queer, trans, and disabled anime fans. Turns out, there's a lot of racism, homophobia, transphobia, and ableism within these communities.
Unfortunately for the viewers, Karen doesn't provide any examples to back up his points, so the audience has to take his word as fact. What Karen said is rather dishonest. The most popular anime discussion board, the r/anime subreddit, has an extensive list of rules and regulations, including rules that protect netizens from hate speech. Similarly, another large anime discussion board, My Anime List, has similar rules implemented. The same is with Anime News Network, Anime Superhero Forum, AnimeForums.net, AnimeForum.com, Anime Planet, and the list goes on and on. It's almost as if these forums wish to peacefully discuss anime, not hate.
Quick, what do anime fans and alt-right extremists have in common? They both probably fetishize Asian women. I love anime.
The first problem Karen discusses is a personal anecdote.
Good God, the most horrifying and toxic arguments I have ever gotten in online were with anime girl profile pictures. Annoying anime profile pic conservatives have the most obnoxious, shitposting, bad faith attitudes that I've ever engaged with.
Once again, Karen fails to show actual arguments that he has, instead opting to show drawings of anime girls. Fortunately, researchers have actually done studies on how profile pictures relate to online behavior. In Study on the Relationship Between Profile Images and User Behaviors on Twitter, researchers from Osaka University, Tomo Tominaga and Yoshinoro Hijikata, created 13 classifications for users based on profile pictures, with the relevant one being otaku, which is a term describing an obsessive hobbyist who uses an image of a beautiful female character from Japanese anime or manga. The researchers found that the otaku users generally prefer posting tweets in a one-way style of communication, i.e., they do not usually use the reply or mention actions. This means that despite what the memes say, the likelihood of someone with an anime profile picture actually replying is rather low. They usually post instead. People who use anime profile pictures will generally talk about their hobbies and interests. People who are political on Twitter will use a profile picture related to their ideology, not an anime girl. And this is reflected in the study. It's important to note that this experiment is also highly repeatable, as the formulas and methods are provided in the study, and you could do this yourself to see if this is actually true. On the contrary, Karen claims that,
and whenever I spot mask-off neo-Nazis, fascism advocacy, general right-wing toxicity, 7 times out of 10 it's one of these profiles.
During my research, I was unable to find any evidence showing Karen had argued with these people on Twitter. While creating this video, Karen had actually deleted his Twitter account, so I could have potentially missed these interactions. Editing me here. While I was making this video, this guy's Twitter came back up. I guess it was suspended and not banned like I said, so sorry about that. I did go back to his Twitter though. I scrolled through it to look through any interactions he had where he was arguing with these people. I couldn't find any. He had hardly any Twitter actions prior to making the video. I don't know if stuff was purged or deleted, or maybe I just missed it or didn't look hard enough. But yeah, while it is unfortunate that Karen may or may not have had poor interactions with political anime profile picture users, the research states that this is an uncommon occurrence, not a systemic problem like Karen suggests.
I'm not some jackass trying to attack a form of media that I have no interest in.
The next claim Karen makes is that anime supports fascism due to Japanese history.
First off, I don't know if you remember this, but Japan had a bit of an angsty fascism phase in the 20th century. They were obviously great buds with a certain mustache man, as well as the government practice of statism, a political system in which the state has substantial centralized control over social and economic affairs. Just one of many flavors of fascism.
This is a pretty solid fact. Like most countries, Japan has done a lot of terrible things in the past, but how does Japan's history impact its current media? Well, Karen fails to elaborate on this point, instead choosing to further condemn Japan for being an isolationist country.
I'm going to generalize here. Japan hates immigrants and refugees. The incredibly low number of them that they allow into Japan each year is no coincidence.
Obviously, Karen did say he was generalizing, but it still is a pretty bold claim. Like his previous statements, Karen doesn't really back this up, just showing a sourceless graph of Japan's immigration trend. For some reason, Karen failed to show the graph depicting Japan's refugee intake. This graph shows that from 2021 to 2022, Japan's refugee intake increased by 924.6%. This directly contrasts Karen's statement, as Japan has granted thousands of refugees asylum. Karen's video was made in October of 2022, so this information was not only easily accessible, but also current. Also, in 2023, Japan granted thousands more refugees asylum, showing that this is a trend. Perhaps these numbers were not as large as those of other countries, so Karen felt the need to bring it up. The issue isn't whether or not Japan should be taking in refugees though, and I believe Karen and I are both unqualified to answer this question. The main issue with this is that Karen failed to include factual information that directly disproves his baseless claim. Also, as you can see on this graph, the Japanese immigration rate has been increasing drastically for the past 30 years. It is evident that while Japan is an isolationist country, things are changing, and Karen intentionally failed to acknowledge this, most likely because it contrasts his narrative that the anime community has a fascism problem. It is important to note that this has nothing to do with anime as well. Karen is just complaining about Japan, like a drunk uncle on Thanksgiving.
I'm not some jackass trying to attack a form of media that I have no interest in.
Karen makes a few more points about Western hate groups being linked to Japanese hate groups, and while it is true that there are links between these groups, this is unrelated to Karen's thesis and has nothing to do with anime. It's just filler content that Karen uses to extend the length of his video. Karen then brings the conversation back to the forums.
The point that I'm trying to make is that generally, both are chronically online and are part of message board communities. Good old message board. You can talk about your favorite anime characters and about how pure bloodlines are in danger of being compromised by foreigners, and sometimes both in the exact same website.
As discussed earlier, the top message boards and anime communities all have rules and guidelines in order to prevent hate from being spread. Because of this, Karen brings up two infamous message boards, 2chan and 4chan. These are highly unregulated, anonymous message boards that allow for free speech without censorship. Because of this, people with extremist opinions often use these boards to communicate. While these boards can be used to discuss anime and manga, they're also used to discuss a wide variety of topics. There are many choices as where to discuss anime, and as established earlier, most people use websites like Reddit or My Anime List, which are not only highly popular, but also highly regulated. Using message boards and liking anime are two independent things, and once again, Karen fails to provide any data linking the two. Karen then goes on to discuss a controversy in the anime community.
Now let me set the scene for you. You are on anime Twitter. Some new members of the One Piece live action cast were revealed. We noticed that the actor who plays Arlong of the Arlong Pirates is a black man. Arlong is a fish man. And I don't know if you know this, but fishes don't assign themselves racial identities, at least as far as we know. And you see a bunch of people complain that a character who they like is being played by a black man. Alright, I'll be generous, maybe it's just a problem with fishmen. Nope, also Nami's sister. Damn.
This is the first real time that Karen has provided actual examples. Because of this, I've been able to go back and find the post Karen is referring to. The first is from GOAW. In the comments, there are mostly positive reactions, with several specifically stating that they like the casting, especially with Arlong. You can find the comment that Karen highlighted in this video, and to to this day, it is still unliked and has 0 interactions. If you go to the commenter's profile, it's just some random guy who likes race cars, and not really the supposed white supremacist that Karen was referring to. It appeared to be a one-off outlier tweet. Unfortunately, the next comment he showed has been removed, so I was unable to find it, but the screenshot Karen provided is good enough. We could clearly see the first commenter expressing their displeasure at the casting choices, but for some reason, Karen made the decision to include a reply of someone with significantly more likes, telling the other commenter that it doesn't matter what race the actor is, as long as their performance is good, it is fine. This displays that the overall anime community felt positive about the casting. It's almost as if Karen had to use tweets with no likes and negative replies to back up his point, because he couldn't find any examples with more positive interactions. Obviously, there are going to people who hold negative feelings about the casting, but this isn't something that is intrinsically linked to enjoying an art medium such as anime, like Karen suggests. The next comment that Karen cited is a netizen showing concern that Arlong's actor, McKinley Belcher III, was done dirty by his agent. While the concern is pretty misguided, it doesn't show any form of prejudice, just concern for the actor and how his race impacted his casting. The commenter is definitely misguided and is clearly not malicious, as Karen suggests. The final comment Karen shows is a user who is upset that a black woman is playing Nojiko from One Piece. The thing is, the comment has no likes, while the positive comment right above it that Karen intentionally shows is well received. Once again, Karen's showing that those who were upset by the casting were in the minority, proving that there's not a systemic fascism problem in anime. Karen says these comments are what leads people down the right-wing pipeline, or the idea that if you view right-wing content online, you will be shown more right-wing content and become radicalized. The thing is, you will be shown more content like what you're watching, because the algorithm will think that you like it. If you look at left-wing tweets, you will be recommended left-wing content. If you look at right-wing tweets, you will be recommended right-wing content. If you look at anime and manga tweets, you will be recommended anime and manga stuff. It is highly improbable that Twitter comments with no interactions will lead someone down a path towards fascism. Next, Karen brings up the anime and manga, Attack on Titan. Once again, this is another anime based on a Shonen Jump manga.
To anybody who thinks that Eren Yeager is in the right, and that there are any, and I quote, good genocides or justifiable genocides, get some help.
Karen fails to show any proof that there are people saying this. While it is definitely discussed whether or not the ends justify the means of the fictional story, I couldn't find anyone using Attack on Titan to justify real-world genocide. Maybe I should have gone on 4chan, like Karen suggested. Once again, he's using hyper-specific examples without any evidence in order to claim that the Japanese animation industry is linked to fascism.
Yep, we are about to talk about a show and manga that a lot of fascists love, Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan is the 11th most popular manga of all time, selling over 140 million copies. It has won awards domestically in Japan, but also in France and the United States. People from all around the world, from all walks of life, love Attack on Titan, not just fascists as Karen implies.
Hajime Isayama is the creator of Attack on Titan. I haven't read the manga. I'm not some jackass trying to attack a form of media that I have no interest in.
The next segment of this video is definitely the most nonsensical. Here, Karen tries to apply his Western ideological perspective to an interview with Isayama.
Isayama applies an apolitical interview technique where he answers any questions regarding politics very diplomatically. And I think that is kind of problematic and emblematic of anime communities. This show is very complicated. It deals with topics such as ethnic cleansing and borrows many aesthetics from, let's say 20th century German and Japanese militaries.
I find it odd that Karen wants Isayama to give his opinions on the atrocities of World War II, when it's pretty obvious to anyone reading the manga or watching the anime that what is happening is being portrayed as a negative thing. The story shows the mental anguish, the destroyed relationships, and the horrors of war. Karen's representation of the story is very disingenuous. Just because something is present in the story doesn't mean the author agrees with it, and in Attack on Titan, it's rather obvious that what is being shown is terrible. That is why Isayama doesn't state that these things are wrong. It is because anyone who has read the story can understand that genocide and war crimes are bad. Also, not to nitpick, but once again, Karen shows how little he respects Isayama by constantly mispronouncing his name. It's Isayama, not Isayama.
The unofficial war doesn't have heroes or villains theme, and the pick your favorite side approach that fans are insisting the show has is massive dog shit. Whether intentional or not, it is downright irresponsible for a story with these kinds of intricacies to not have a clear dialogue of moral interpretation.
The show doesn't have a pick a side theme. It's evident from the countless lives lost and the terrible things that the characters have done that nobody is really in the right. In the real world, when a war happens, people often say that both sides are in the wrong, they want the fighting to stop, and they just wish for peace. That's what's reflected in Attack on Titan. There's no clear good guy versus bad guy in the story, because that isn't the story Isayama is trying to tell. Isayama assumes that the reader is intelligent enough to understand that what is happening is wrong, and he doesn't need to spell it out for the reader or viewer as if they were some sort of child.
This is how you get shitheads on message boards sharing their neo-Nazi opinions. Opinions such as Eldians are white people being tricked by foreign Jewish powers into thinking that they themselves are the enemies, whilst these foreign powers pull the strings from the shadows. On the opposite end of the right-wing spectrum, it could also be argued that an ethnic religious group having the ability to change into bloodthirsty abominations is also not that great.
This is another one of the few times Karen chooses to use evidence to back up his thesis. Anime and the anime community has a fascism problem. Unfortunately, Karen's evidence is rather weak, as he utilizes 2 screenshots from 4chan, the extremist message board he cited earlier in the video. Anime fans utilize a plethora of different message boards, forums, subreddits, and Discord servers to discuss their interests. 2 screenshots from a message board known to be extreme is not emblematic of a systemic problem. Karen then goes on to make some bold claims about Isayama, once again getting his name wrong, and implying that he is a neo-Nazi.
And not to mention, Isayama kinda seems pro-Japanese imperialism based off of the imagery and character designs used in the show. Some good and not villainous characters are based off of war criminals who did absolutely terrible things. Isayama described Yoshifuru Akiyama, a war criminal who was the inspiration behind the design of Dot Pixis, as being, quote, respectful and frugal. Yikes.
This claim actually isn't Karen's own, but instead comes from an animation blog called Musings That Are Seldom. I don't get why Karen didn't credit them for this. Also, Isayama's statement comes from his own blog, not an interview. Anyways, in 2010, Isayama claimed that the design for Dot Pixis, an Attack on Titan character, was based on Akiyama Yoshifuru, a Japanese general who lived in Imperial Japan. During his life, Yoshifuru was a successful military commander, participating in 3 wars, pioneered the Japanese cavalry, and was promoted to general. He's controversial for allegedly being involved in the Port Arthur massacre. In 1894, 11 Japanese soldiers went on a reconnaissance mission to a village near Port Arthur, where they were killed by Chinese troops. When their bodies were found, one soldier wrote, "The enemy perpetrated unspeakable atrocities to the corpses of our comrades. They cut off their heads and ripped the skin from their faces. In some cases, they hacked off their genitals. They cut open their chests and filled the cavities with stone. How could anyone fail to be horrified by such a sight?" The soldier who wrote this letter was part of Yoshifuru's cavalry unit. That's all I could find on Yoshifuru being related to any war crimes. He did participate in several wars in the region during that time period, but so did countless other military leaders in China, Korea, Russia, and Japan. Yoshifuru is a widely respected historical figure in Japan, as he was known for being an intelligent and strong leader, and he's widely hated in Korea and China due to his involvement in the war. To criticize Isayama for basing one of his character designs on a historical figure that's seen positively in his country is foolish. It would be like people getting mad if a character was based on George Washington because Washington fought in the 7 Years' War and the Revolutionary War. I can't blame Karen much on this though, as it took a good amount of research to debunk Musings That Are Seldom's claims.
An aesthetic surrounding glorification of right-wing war criminals is most definitely appealing to neo-Nazis. Kinda hard to argue against that, no?
Yoshifuru was not a war criminal, so Karen's argument kinda just falls apart.
Kinda hard to argue against that.
To further reinforce this, in 2023, Tim Brinkhoff of the Newsline magazine interviewed Japanese historians on Yoshifuru and reported that the historians were unable to confirm if Yoshifuru was directly involved in any war crimes over the course of his career, and neither the comments on Isayama's blog nor the media outlets that reported them presented any evidence to back up these claims. I'm not saying Yoshifuru was a good or bad guy. By today's standards, he probably wasn't, but using unfounded claims about him to smear Isayama is pretty wild.
Now, I am not a bonehead. I have comprehended the story, and I'm not 4 years old. I understand that Eren is the new villain, radicalized through the trauma of being subject to ethnic cleansing. I understand that the show pushes anti-right-wing extremism through storytelling.
If Karen understood these things, why would he use them as points to claim that the medium of anime and its community has a fascism problem?
And as I have stated in the video, many of these communities are accommodating to fascist ideology.
While it is true Karen said this, he did not use any substantial evidence to support his claims. He used 4 screenshots from Twitter, 2 4chan posts, uncredited graphs, and some edgy memes. He lied about Isayama, lied about the industry, and lied lied about the community. So, why did Karen make this video? There's two main possibilities. The first is that Karen feels some sort of disdain towards anime and Japanese culture. He dislikes that the country has roots in imperialism and a violent history with its neighbors. In his deleted videos, he is a self-proclaimed communist, so he may not be a big fan of the country as it is today as well. Also, the deleted videos are still on his Patreon, so you could watch them today. This theory is just speculation though. Across his YouTube channel, he has only mentioned Japan in 6 videos, and he's never mentioned the country on any other social media platforms, at least to my knowledge, as he has deleted stuff in the past. He really only expresses his dislike of Japan in this video. To be charitable, this theory isn't very likely, but it is still definitely something to consider, as many of his points come across as malicious and are completely unfounded. The second theory is that Karen doesn't believe in what he's actually saying, and is instead spreading misinformation in order to cater to the anti-anime audience. While it may look like this is Karen's first video on his channel, in reality, he's been on the platform since 2011, and had a pretty decent amount of videos before this one. This is the only video of his from his old era of content that is still currently up on his channel, and that's most likely due to the large view count. You can still go back and watch his old videos on his Patreon account, which he retroactively linked to this video. Personally, I find it genuinely hard to accept that Karen believes in the things he's saying. They're factually false and can easily be disproved. It is because of this I feel that Karen tried to make an inflammatory video in order to get a few hate views when his channel was young, in order to push himself over the monetization threshold, and ended up with a video that completely blew up his channel. Because he was successful, he left the video up. That is my current theory. Obviously, we will probably never know the truth though. But what happens when something in the community is actually hateful? Well, the isekai manga, Second Life in Another World, is a good example of this. The story begins with the protagonist, Renya Kunugi, waking up in a fantasy world. He was a 94-year-old swordsmaster on Earth, and he got reincarnated as an 18-year-old when he died. It's a generic slop isekai about saving a kingdom and protecting people and stuff. The art is above average, and the illustrator did a pretty good job with what they had to work with. They had to work with Mine, who wrote the light novel version of the story. Mine actually got in trouble with their publishing company for making hateful comments about Chinese people on Twitter, or X. Upon further review, these ideas bled into the story they wrote, with the protagonist having defeated many people with his katana in the past. If you add up the dates from the book, such as the character's age and the wars he fought in the real world, along with the tweets from the author, it's pretty apparent that Renya participated in the Nanjing Massacre, an event that occurred in 1937 during the Second Sino-Japanese War. During this event, Japanese soldiers raped and killed thousands of civilians. The protagonist from this manga is heavily implied to have participated in this, with him being depicted in the military uniform that was worn during that event. So, what happened? The light novel was dropped, the license for the novel was dropped, the manga ended, the anime's adaptation production was cancelled. It's almost like the anime community and industry are opposed to bigotry, and they want their art to reflect positive and fun ideas and interests. This wasn't a very hard example to look for either, and it makes me wonder why Karen didn't just include any real examples like this one in his video. Karen really is just a
jackass trying to attack a form of media that I have no interest in,
for the sake of profit and views. Thank you for watching this video. If you did come from Karen's video, hopefully this changed your mind about the medium of anime. I know this video was a bit different from the usual stuff. Thank you all for your recent support, especially on the dark fantasy video. Later, gamers.